I was going through an old Georgia power bill, and there's this line item on it, nuclear construction cost recovery, about $10 a month. And I checked the date, and here's the strange part. The bill is from years before the nuclear plant it's naming ever turned on. So they were charging me for a power plant that wasn't running yet?
You were. And so was every other Georgia power home. For more than a decade, that line, nuclear construction cost recovery, put the cost of 2 nuclear reactors, Vogtle Units 3 and 4, onto the monthly bill while those reactors were still a construction site. Starting in 2011, roughly $10 a month for a typical home for years before the plant delivered a single kilowatt-hour. That is not a billing error. It is a mechanism, and it has a name. So today, no outrage, just the mechanism. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how a utility can charge you for a power plant years before it makes any electricity, and why that is perfectly legal. It's called construction work in progress. And I'm going to show you the Georgia law that switched it on, the docket number where a regulator decided how much of a $35 billion project lands on your bill, and the moment the meter really starts. Almost nobody reads any of it. Start with the normal rule, the one that held for about a century. A utility builds something, a plant, a line, a substation. And only when that thing is used and useful, actually delivering power to you, does it go into the rate base and start earning money from customers. Build first, bill later. You pay for the plant after it turns on.
Right? That's what I'd assume. I don't pay for it until it's actually running.
That is the default. Construction work in progress breaks that timing. It lets the utility put a plant onto your bill while it is still being built, and in Georgia, one law made it explicit. In 2009, the legislature passed the Georgia Nuclear Energy Financing Act, Senate Bill 31. It let Georgia Power charge customers the financing costs of Vogtle during construction, before the reactors produced any power. It took effect in 2011. On your bill, that is the Nuclear Construction Cost Recovery line.
Why would a law let them do that? That sounds backwards.
Here's the stated logic, and it's a real argument. A nuclear plant takes about a decade to build and costs billions to finance. If you let all that interest pile up and compound for 10 years, then hand the whole stack to customers at the end, it's enormous. Pay the financing as you go, the theory says, and the plant is cheaper over its life. So the customer covers the interest early, and in exchange, supposedly pays less in total.
In theory. So what actually happened?
The plant took far longer and cost far more than customers were told at the start. And because of this mechanism, they were already paying while the overruns piled up. That is why the timing matters so much. Under the old rule, a delay costs the shareholder, who has to wait to get paid. Under construction work in progress, the customer is already paying, delay or no delay. The clock started early, and it did not stop when the schedule slipped. Let's put real scale on that. When the commission approved these 2 reactors back in 2009, they were supposed to cost about $14 billion and come online around 2016 and 2017.
And the real number? I have a feeling it's not 14 billion.
By the time both units were finally running, total spending by all the owners had passed $35 billion, and the reactors came online about 7 years late. Georgia Power's own share of that reached about $10.2 billion. So hold the 2 pictures together. $14 billion promised, more than $35 billion spent, and for a big part of those years, customers already paying on the bill.
7 years late. And the whole time it's late, I'm the one still paying that line every month?
Every month. That is the quiet cost of the timing. Under the old build first, bill later rule, 7 years of delay is 7 years the shareholder waits for a payday. Flip to construction work in progress, and those same 7 years are 7 years of financing charges already landing on the customer's bill. The delay didn't pause the meter, it extended it. The longer the project slipped, the longer that line stayed on the bill before there was ever a plant to show for it.
So where did all of that money actually go, if the plant wasn't even built yet?
Into financing. Follow the dollar. During construction, your payment doesn't buy a reactor. It pays the interest, and the return, on the money already sunk into a hole in the ground. The accounting name for it is allowance for funds used during construction. Part of that is interest on debt, and part of it is a return on the shareholders' equity. Profit earned on a plant that is producing nothing yet.
Wait, they earn a profit on it before it makes any power at all?
That is the heart of it. Remember the machine from our earlier episodes, rate base times an allowed return. Georgia's regulators set that return, the ROE, at 10.5%. Construction work in progress lets the unfinished plant start earning that return early. So for years the flow ran one direction, from ratepayer to financing to shareholder return, before a single kilowatt-hour reached the grid. And to be fair, that is not the utility being a villain. That is the rule doing exactly what it was written to do. But look at what it changes. It flips who carries the risk of a delay, from the shareholder onto the customer, which is precisely why, when the overruns got enormous, the real fight became who eats them. And that fight has a docket number.
Okay, show me the paper.
Georgia Public Service Commission, docket number 29849. That is the Vogtle Construction Monitoring and Prudence case. And separately, the early charge itself lives in its own tariff, the Nuclear Construction Cost Recovery Rider, docket 32-539, 2 dockets. One created the charge that hit your bill during construction. The other decided the final bill at the end. Here's the number that decided your share. By the end, Georgia Power expected to spend about $10.2 billion on its part of the 2 reactors. The exact figure in the filing is $10.188 billion.
And customers just pay all of it?
No, and this is where the second safeguard comes in, the prudence review. When a project runs way over budget, the regulator asks a hard question: was that overrun prudently incurred, or was it waste? Only the prudent part is allowed into rate base. In a stipulated agreement filed in August 2023 and approved by the Commission on December 19, 2023, they drew the line. Customers would cover $7.562 billion of construction cost. Shareholders would absorb $2.626 billion.
So the company actually ate about $2.5 billion of it?
It did. That is the prudence mechanism working. A slice of the overrun kept off your bill. But notice what is left. $7.5 billion of construction goes into the rate base and earns that 10.5% return for decades. When Unit 3 came online in July 2023, the typical home's bill rose about $5.42 a month. When Unit 4 followed in April 2024, another roughly $8.96. Combined, about $14 a month, on top of all the years of early financing you had already paid.
So I paid during construction, and then I pay again now that it's finally running.
Both. And that is the whole timing dimension in one sentence. Construction work in progress charged you the financing during the build. Rate base charges you the plant itself now that it is used and useful. The early payments did reduce the interest that would have compounded. That was the deal, but the customer carried the risk of the build the entire way down.
Did anyone actually check the math on all this? Or did they just wave it through?
That is exactly what Docket 29849 is. Years of construction monitoring hearings held every 6 months. Sworn testimony, an independent monitor watching the project. And the prudence review at the end. That $2.6 billion the shareholders absorbed is the visible residue of all that scrutiny. The record is public. We read it.
And the law that started the whole thing, is it still on the books?
The Nuclear Energy Financing Act is still Georgia law, though the legislature later closed it to any future plants. For Vogtle, it did precisely what it was written to do. It moved the timing of who pays, from after the plant runs to during the build, and for more than a decade to before there was any plant at all. So step back and see the shape. 3 major episodes now, 3 parts of one machine. We took apart the return a utility earns on its rate base. We took apart what actually goes into that base. Today is a third dimension, and it's the sneaky one, when the meter starts. Construction work in progress moves the clock. You pay while it is still a construction site.
So the real trick isn't the price, it's the timing.
That is exactly it. Same plant, same rate base, same allowed return. But start the charge years earlier, during construction, and now the customer is financing the build and carrying the delay. That is the entire mechanism. Not good, not bad, sitting here, just the rule, on paper, with a number attached to it. And the number is attached to Vogtle, one more time, about 14 billion promised. More than 35 billion spent by all the owners. 10.2 billion on Georgia Power's books. 7.5 billion of that placed on customers, earning a return for decades, plus the years of financing customers paid before the reactors ever split an atom for the grid.
And by the time any of it reaches the bill, the number is already settled somewhere in a docket. The decision happens years before the line shows up.
And this is not only Georgia. Florida and South Carolina passed their own early recovery laws. South Carolina's became infamous because customers there kept paying for a pair of nuclear reactors that were abandoned, never finished, never producing a watt. Every one of those stories is a statute, a docket, and a line on a bill. We read Georgia's.
So next time I see nuclear construction cost recovery on a bill, now I know what it actually is.
You know exactly what it is. It is the timing of the meter written into a statute and a docket. A charge for a power plant that on the day the line first showed up on the bill was not running yet. When you understand the timing, you understand the whole thing. Next on this channel, over on Uninsurable, we open another document almost nobody reads. The fine print that decides whether your home stays insurable at all. And next on the meter, how a utility keeps its revenue guaranteed even when you use less power. A mechanism called decoupling. I'm Marcus Reeve. 30 years reading the fine print.
And I'm Nora Vance. Go dig up an old Georgia Power bill and find the nuclear construction cost recovery line. Now you know what the timing really cost.